Welcome to Business Talk, our weekly University of Rio Grande, the Ohio State University South Center's weekly podcast show. We are here at the University of Rio Grande's TV studio. Not only are we doing live internet radio through Blog Talk Radio, but we are also live on the Jackson Educational Access Channel and Channel 17 University of Rio Grande TV channel. Our podcasts are archived and placed on your YouTube for your viewing and listening again and again and again.
And again.
Our mission is simple: to promote the University of Rio Grande and its diverse educational programs, promote the Ohio State University South Centers and its many business technology programs, and finally promote Southern Ohio, a great place to live, learn, and enjoy life to the fullest.
Our co-hosts are Jason Winters, Director of the Center for Small Business Entrepreneurship, and Mike Thompson, Instructional Design and Media Services Director, both with the University of Rio Grande. We also have behind the camera today Patrick Dengel, Business Development Specialist, and Kimberly Roush, Program Assistant, both with the Ohio State University South Centers. We also, joining us for the first time, we have an MBA student, Nate Walzer. And Nate is going to be a co-host with us for several more shows to come, I believe. And today we have a very special guest. Jerry Driggs is with us. He is the Business Incubator Manager at the Ohio State University South Center's Endeavor Center in Piketon. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason. It's an honor to be here.
Jerry, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm an employee of the Ohio State University. I've been there since 2003. I was in manufacturing for about 25 years, and I had my own company for about 10 years. And I started with OSU to start a manufacturing technology program. And then about that time, the incubator was being built, and it got constructed, and there was an opening, a position available for manager there. And so I became the manager of the OSU Endeavor Center.
I know today we're going to talk about incubators. We're going to talk about the types of different kinds of incubators and how business incubators make a difference. But, you know, there's a lot of our listening audience, especially in the Jackson County and the Vinton County area, that are listening that may not have the business background that we have. So why don't you bring us down to a very elementary level and explain to our public what a business incubator is all about.
There are a number of different kind of incubators. The seed that started them back in the 80s was that governmental organizations, primarily the EDA and some other economic development groups, understood that businesses, especially businesses starting out, needed a helping hand in order to get over the hump to be successful. The stats in Ohio are that 80% of the businesses that start up fail within 2 years, and so there was an obvious need to help assist businesses get past that danger 2-year period. And the powers that be, the economic development experts said that business incubation, a way to house businesses, to give them some professional office space so that they can look bigger than what they are, to give them access to some high-tech equipment that maybe businesses don't have starting out, maybe to allow them to have a synergy with other small businesses that are struggling with the same kind of issues they are, and maybe even to stick a business professional in that building to assist all of the businesses that are in that, may be the thing that would help small businesses just starting out become successful. And their insight has turned out to be realistic, because the stats say the NBIA, the National Business Incubators Association, compiles statistics, and they say that those companies that start in business incubators reverse that trend after 5 years. After 5 years, 80% of the businesses that start in business incubators are still in business. So their insight has proven to be true. The NBIA had some statistics that showed that there are over 1,000 business incubators in the Appalachian region. Now, those business incubators run the gamut for their incubators are a lot like individual businesses. They tend to cater to a specific clientele. For instance, the Endeavor Center is a mixed-use facility. We don't typically take lifestyle businesses, which are accountants, lawyers, as people who are just interested in doing business for themselves and not expanding. We don't do retail. In other words, we don't have shoe stores generally in there. That's a different kind of incubator. We assist businesses that are looking to grow rapidly. So we have a lot of professional services businesses, and we also have a light manufacturing wing to our building. So we actually take on manufacturers. We have a machine shop in our facility. But incubators in general run the gamut. If you go to a lot of cities, you'll find that there are incubators for retail shops in those cities. If you go to campuses, for instance, Ohio State, they have a incubator on campus whose purpose is to commercialize the research ideas that professors develop. And so the professors a lot of times don't want to get involved in the business world. They don't want to push those ideas out into the market themselves. And so the incubator there becomes a chief resource for them to hand control of that idea over and for that to become a real product or service that's available in the community. So incubators serve a wide range of needs, and they're even specific to individual businesses. For instance, in Athens, there's a kitchen incubator, and that incubator deals primarily with food processing, with the issues that surround companies that go into the food business.
Now, is there something you have to do to qualify, or can I just come in with a crazy idea and I want to do a business?
Well, actually, that is the secret behind that 80% number. The reality is nearly all incubators screen their partners, their occupants, extremely with a fine-tooth comb. And the reality is you don't typically get into an incubator until you've got an idea that has matured and is at the point where it is commercializable. For instance, for us, that means that we typically don't take people who have just had an idea and scratched it out on a piece of paper. For the OSU Endeavor Center, what we generally get are businesses who've been in operation, who've had some success, who've figured out that, hey, this is
I've got to grow beyond me and my house.
Exactly.
And how do I because getting paying the rent or a lease on a large facility is hard to get into when you're starting in your garage.
Exactly, and that's kind of the purpose of most business incubators. My idea is working. I'm working out of my garage or my basement, but you know what? That's not very professional. I've got a service that is needed, wanted by the community, and I need a professional space that I can move into and maybe not pay like I would for a real high-class space, but at least have the appearance of a professional space. And so that's the kind of market that incubators cater to. And the reality is most of the people who apply at our business incubator have a very successful, a serviceable product or service already. They are poised at the point to grow rapidly. They've got clients, they've got a pathway to growth. They just need a home that will facilitate that.
No. Oh, just lost it.
Well, I'll jump in there.
Okay.
So for a monthly fee, they're renting a space to operate their business. Do they also get some professional services along with that fee?
They do. And the professional services really comes from two different groups. Almost all business incubators have a manager, and the manager's job is to facilitate that partner any way they can. If they need help hiring employees, if they need help setting policies and procedures, if they need marketing help, if they need any kind of financial help, that manager is there to assist in whatever the need is. But also, probably the best instruction that happens at most incubators, at incubators that function well, is the education that fellow small business people give each other as to how they approached the issues that face all small businesses. So really, economic professional can sit behind a desk and say, we need to do this, this, and this, and that may have some weight. But when the guy who's got a business, who struggled just like you has, said, you need to do this or you need to investigate it, it carries a lot of weight. So what you find is incubators that are successful, there's a real synergy among the partners, the other occupants of the building, and they tend to be on the same team. They help each other and assist each other with information, and they pass business back and forth, and it tends to be a we're in this together kind of
And you wouldn't
process.
have one that would compete with another one in the same building?
Generally not. Generally, that's the purpose of the manager, is to try to screen some of the occupants so that you don't have
So
a
they're
lot
all
of
nice fit.
So you're all nice fit. That's one of the key parts of a manager, is to build a team, if you will, of players whose strengths complement, whose products and services complement each other, rather than having a lot. Although there are incubators, for instance, technology incubators. If you go to Coshocton, there's a technology incubator at Youngstown, a technology incubator in which there are multiple companies in that business who are involved in the exact same business, and they are competing directly against each other. And what their idea is, we can generate this, we can build this business so there's enough room for you and I both. So generally, you don't find a lot of cutthroat competition within an incubator. That would tend to discourage the.
But in that case, they're sharing that expensive equipment that they'd have to purchase individually.
Absolutely, and that's another real key. Obviously, through the resources of the university and some of our other funding partners, we have some very expensive electronic equipment in the building. In addition to that, we're plugged directly into the Third Frontier network, so our bandwidth, although it's not unlimited, it is fairly vast. So, and that's something that they would have to pay a lot of money for on their own, and more than likely, if you're a 1 or 2 person shop and you're just moving out of your garage or the basement, you're not going to buy a $30,000 printer. So by coming to our building, they immediately get access to those kinds.
I was going to ask about funding. Is this funded by the state of Ohio, or venture capital, or a mixture, or what?
That's an excellent question, and the answer is that every incubator is different. But what the MBIA says is that incubators that tend to be the most successful are ones that are forced to operate like a small business themselves. So in our case, what that means for Ohio State is we have to self-sustain ourselves. So me and my staff are supported by the operations of the Endeavor Center itself. That way...
So the businesses who are incubated there pay a fee
exactly right.
for you guys, and that's what keeps you...
Exactly. And incubators, like small businesses, address that in a lot of different ways. The way we've done it in particular is we've got 2 floors, and there was a need in our area for larger businesses to have office space too. And so we allow those larger, what we consider to be anchor partners, to inhabit our upper floor, and they pay a significantly higher rate than those folks on the first floor who truly meet our mission. So in effect, that they are the businesses that have grown beyond the small business size are in effect subsidizing the rent for those people on the first floor. And we keep the rent on the first floor right about commercial real estate office space rates for the area. Now, our building is a very nice building, as most incubators are. Mm-hmm. They tend to be really nice buildings, and you could not find that sort of space at that rate anyplace else.
How long have you been doing, or not maybe you, but how long has an incubator been there? And maybe how many businesses have flown away from that as a nest?
The OSU Endeavor Center opened in July of 2005, and I became the manager in July of 2005. Our official statistics are we've had 12 businesses that have built their own headquarters or moved into larger facilities that they've remodeled off-site. We've had a number of other companies that have grown too big for our space, but they've not necessarily built their own spots. They've just looked for larger spaces on the outside. So we've had 12 that have built their own or remodeled their own buildings on the outside. And just to give you an idea of who those might, we had an orthodontist in our building. His first practice, he came in with, in effect, 0 employees. In the course of 3 years, he grew to about 10 employees, and he built a 5,000 square foot facility in Chillicothe to house their new orthodontist office. We've had a number of those kind of success stories. Been really fortunate. We've had 2 people in our building who have been listed in Inc. magazine's list of 200 fastest growing privately held companies in the United States. So
that's not too bad. That's
no
more than 1 a year, isn't it?
Well, not quite 1 a year, but the reality, they've been on the list multiple times. So.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to one point we kind of jumped off there a minute, and that's the self-sustaining economic model that the incubator has. I think that's really important because so many times I hear community leaders say, we've got an empty building, let's make an incubator out of it. We've got plenty of space, we can, turn this room into an office and that room into a copy room and this room into an office, and they really don't take into effect that economic model. There's a lot of expenses that go into an incubator. Am I correct?
That's a fact. There are a lot. Obviously, you just got the plain expense of the building, but obviously, if you've got staff, you've got the expense of the staff. But there are always things breaking. The reality is that successful incubators need to operate the same way that small businesses do. You've got to have a niche. You've got to know what your market is, and then you've got to stay relevant in that market. You have to give people a reason to want to be in your building to use your goods and services. And so that means a lot of different things. That means you've got to keep yourself up technologically. It's a constant challenge of ours, given the state funding, to pay for the improvements to computers and things. We've got a computer lab in our building that the people in the building are free to use, and then we also rent to outside folks. Obviously, that's something that needs to be kept up to date, and the same is true for our classrooms and also for the furnishings inside the offices. Occasionally they have to be replaced, and so you not only have to make enough to break even, but you have to make enough. Your revenues has to be enough to replace equipment, just like it would be for a regular business that was operating an office building.
And that's so important in incubators, because when you set up an incubator, you want to make sure that those clients are successful. And if you get to the point where you can't sustain yourself and you're not helping clients, you're actually doing them a disservice by putting them into that situation. So a successful economic plan is really important for an incubator.
And the MBIA says that is the key, the prime directive for incubator managers is to see themselves as an employee of the partners who are in the building. Otherwise, a gap happens, and if you're just a government building existing so that somebody else can be housed there, that's not the point. The point is to assist those businesses to grow rapidly, and so you've really got to think of yourself as an employee of those businesses that are housed.
How many are those across the state?
Yeah, in Ohio?
Yeah.
Some 100 officially in Ohio. So there are a lot. Now,
probably concentrated more around maybe metropolitan areas.
Universities.
Not every county might have one.
Right. Most universities have incubators, and a lot of counties have found empty buildings and tried to start incubators. The reality is the success rate for incubators is about the same as success rate for new businesses. About 80% fail. So.
And you said you guys had 100 or over 100 different incubators. How many companies does each incubator hold, or is it different with each one?
Well, it depends on A, what they're doing, and B, how big the building is. Obviously, that's determined by size. In our particular case, we have about 30,000 square feet, and some of that is classroom space. Some of it is obviously just general open space. About 20,000 square feet of that is rentable office space, and for us, that means we have about a little over 20 occupants in the building. What you hope to have happen is someone come in who needs one office, and then by the middle of the year they need 2 offices, and then later on they need 3 offices. And what our general practice is, although every incubator is different, we don't like to push people out. We like people to grow to the point that we cannot give them any more space, and so the next logical step is to graduate and go find your own space. There are a lot of incubators, though, that have a 3-year period. You move in, we increase your rate significantly the second year, significantly in the third year. So what we're doing is encouraging you to find a way to support yourself on the outside. But we don't do that at our incubator. We just hope that people grow to the point that either they can move out, or they say, well, my business needs have changed. I don't necessarily need to be in the incubator anymore.
How often do you find the turnover rate to happen?
It's about 21 months for us. Although I will say this, we've got the very first partner. We call them partners, not tenants. Partners in our building. The very first one is still located in our building. He now has 10 office spaces. He's got probably 200 employees that work outside of our building. He's moved from a small business to an anchor partner, and he is so convinced that our spaces are responsible in part for his growth that he wants to have a piece of our building, even though he's not housed there entirely.
What does the university get something out of it, whether it's a research or just not put out there? Do they use the businesses as case studies and that sort of thing?
There are some tangible benefits for the university, and then there are a lot of intangible benefits. Obviously funding issues are always important, and if you can show that the money that is flowing to the university is having a direct and measurable economic impact, obviously that's an inspiration for legislators to continue the funding process. But also, the reality is that, for instance, when the orthodontist was in our building, there were a lot of people who came into our facility, and that was the only time they've ever been in an Ohio State building. And so it gives a lot of folks from the community access to Ohio State University who may not have had access to it otherwise. But there's also anytime it certainly improves the image of the university to be assisting businesses in growing and helping the economic diversity of the region.
So it's more of the public relations arm of.
Certainly that's a very strong aspect of what
Right.
incubators do.
I wasn't sure if like the business programs used it as.
They do. The reality is that it serves a lot of different purposes. In our
Okay.
case, the small business development centers are located on campus, not inside the Endeavor Center, but on campus. And not only does a small business development center put on seminars and workshops at our facility, but they also meet with clients there. So there are a lot of other economic activities that happen at the facility via economic professionals, not only for the Ohio State University, but for all of the economic development institutions that service Southern Ohio.
Mhm.
Jerry, you also mentioned one of your topics is how business incubators make a difference. And I think we've talked about a lot about that, but is there anything we haven't talked about, that business incubators make a difference in your community?
Well, I think there again, you've got some really tangible benefits. To give you, for instance, the partners in our facility, while they've been housed in our facility, have created 650 new positions. And those are all high tech, high skill, high wage in our particular case because we tend to attract engineering and technology firms. Well, that's $50 million a year of direct economic impact to Southern Ohio, which is a very big thing when you take a look at the state statistics on economics in Southern Ohio. That's a huge deal. Okay, in our particular case too, we are also very instrumental in projects that happen at the atomic plant site behind us. We've become a natural hub as a launching point for contractors and subs who do work at the plant site. So the range of benefits is huge, not only to the individual businesses. When you ask the guy who says, well, I started in there and I've added 1 and 2, then 5, and now I'm at 10, obviously for him and his family, the incubators played a huge role. But also, if you multiply those out, there's a ripple effect. Incubators are great in that the fellow who's added 10 jobs at his business in the incubator, well, he's relying on people outside the incubator to supply him with goods and services. So when his business grows, everybody's business grows. So that's really one of the key missions of incubators, not just to make great things happen inside the building, but to have those ripple effects happen outside of the incubator. Because if everything that happens that's good happens inside the incubator, you failed. The idea is to improve the economic vitality of the region as a whole, and successful incubators do that really well.
So does Ohio State University have any other incubators in the area?
Not in the area. They have one on campus, and that's very successful. But there, again, it's kind of a different purpose. That's intended for the commercialization of research projects developed by doctors on campus. So there are more in the area. Athens has a couple of incubators, the Innovation Center and then AceNet Kitchen Incubator. So there are actually several in Cincinnati. So we're kind of surrounded. There's one in Charleston. We're surrounded by incubators, but Ohio State only has one in Southern Ohio.
And I can see why that's so beneficial to our area. That is the only one in southeastern Ohio.
Yeah, and the idea behind this one originally was, obviously with the slowdown for the need of highly enriched uranium at the plant site, economic development directors and political officials got together and said, there's a lot of folks who are going to be displaced when the plant is finally shut down. It would be nice if we had some place for those folks to be retrained, and also maybe to have a place to start their business when their employment at the atomic plant finally comes to an end. And that was really the germination, the seed that started the Endeavor Center. And we've grown from there. That's where we started. And of course, the atomic plant primarily serviced 4 counties: Jackson, Scioto, Ross, and Pike. And the reality is that's primarily where the businesses are housed in our facility come from. And that's not because we exclude anybody else. That's just a geographical.
Does the Endeavor Center have expansion plans? Do you plan on growing the expansion or maybe even going outside of the local campus at Piketon and putting other incubators in?
And we've always hoped that we would grow where we're at. We have plenty of space where we're at. And the reality is, since October of 2005, we've been pretty much filled up. As a matter of fact, we've taken nearly every storage space and empty spot in the building and turned it into office space. But the reality is, with state budgets being the way they are, this is a difficult time to try to expand on the government's dime. And so, but we are investigating some avenues perhaps to expand.
But on that same note, in these tough economic times, you've stayed pretty good.
We've, with the exception of the beginning of the recession, we have been at more than 100% occupancy since October of 2005. As a matter of fact, we've got a waiting list of companies who are waiting to get in. So
I was going to ask you, where is this located? And if somebody is interested, can you tour the place or, talk to someone about it?
absolutely. We're located in Piketon, Ohio, which is just due south of Waverly, which is due south of Chillicothe. We're due north of Portsmouth. We're sort of in the middle between Chillicothe and Portsmouth. I give tours pretty much on a daily basis. And if you want to know more about the incubator, certainly probably the easiest way to find out information is just to Google the OSU Endeavor Center. We'll come up at the top of the list. And there's some information on our website, and obviously our phone number's there and email. Feel free to contact me, and we'd be happy to assist any way possible.
One last comment that you might want to clarify. A lot of people get the Endeavor Center and the South Center's confused. Maybe you want to clarify about how that structure works together.
Okay. Well, the reality is that our two fates are tied to the point where we can't be split. The OSU South Center campus started in 1990. It predates ours. That's a place where Extension and OARDC, the research arm of Ohio State, cooperated together, and it's really meant for the application of research projects on campus. So obviously there are a lot of horticulture, aquaculture. There are a lot of neat extension and research kind of things that happen there. The Endeavor Center became a natural progression because the reality, it is a research center for businesses. The Small Business Development Center has been located at South Center since the late 1990s, and it became apparent that we're helping our counselors are helping people in the counties start their businesses, giving them some assistance. Wouldn't it be neat if we had a place where we could help them on a daily basis, and not only just help them with counseling, but maybe to help them in a more tangible way? And the Endeavor Center became, in effect, that research center for business that the OSU South Centers does for aquaculture and for horticulture and for woodlands and those sort of things. So.
Very good. Jerry, we got about 3 minutes left, and
Actually, about
2 minutes. 2 minutes, and our half hour is going to be up. See, I told you it would go quick. I promised it. So in those last 2 minutes, is there any other information you would like to share with our listening audience before we wrap it up for the day?
Only that if you've got a new business or fairly new and you're at the point where you are constrained in growth by where your business is located, maybe you've gotten to the point where you've honed your good or your product, your service, you're operating out of your garage or maybe someplace that's less than ideal, a business incubator might be a logical next step. It gives your business an immediate appearance of professional activity. You can have access to conference rooms, access to electronic equipment which you may not be able to afford on your own, and it puts you in effect in a group of other ambitious entrepreneurs who are experiencing the same problems you are and have a lot of wisdom about how those can be addressed. So if you've got one of those kind of businesses that is just in the growing state, by all means give us a call or look for an incubator in your area, because they can be really helpful in addressing those issues.
Jerry, if you would share your phone number and your email with our listeners.
Okay, my phone number is area code 740-289-5220. Again, that's 740-289-5220. And my email is Driggs, DRIGGS .8, and that's the number 8, at osu.edu.
You have been listening to Business Talk at the University of Rio Grande. We have been talking with Jerry Driggs, Director of the Endeavor Center at Piketon's OSU South Centers. And this has been a very interesting show. And, Jerry, we thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm Jason.
I'm Mike Thompson.
I'm Nate.
And I'm Jerry Driggs.
And Pat is behind the camera.
Just
Thank you
hiding
for
out.
listening.